This topic is about a special phenomenon that we discovered in early Chinese. Usually we say Old Chinese or early archaic Chinese, the texts of early archaic Chinese, mostly from transmitted literature, and also some of them from excavated documents, like documents from some objects like bronze inscriptions and bamboo and silk manuscripts, and also including like some stone tablets and also some stones. So this is a very special phenomenon because it's what we call it is we define it as in Chinese we say 连绵词, but in English usually people would translate as binomes or binomes. I don't know which way is correct, but binomes or binomes is from a French term. Let me share my screen. I don't know. I'm trying to see if you can see it from there. Can you see it?
Yes, that works. We can see it.
Okay, great. So this is let's see. In Chinese, we call it 连绵词, but in English, usually we translate as a binom, or basically it's a sound correlated disyllabic compound that carries meaning only when it's used as a single word. So that means the composition of these kind of terms are usually two syllables, two morphemes, and a binom consists of two relevant morphemic unions, but in most cases cannot be decomposed. That means cannot be separated in meaning and pronunciation. According to early 19th century scholar Wang Yansun, he defined this phenomenon as reduplicative in his book 读书杂志, and in the chapter of reduplicative expression, he mentioned that the two characters of reduplicative expression, that is binom, both have the same meaning. One cannot separate them and denote them differently. Some scholars constructed the meaning for the expression based on surface reading and often made a forced interpretation of term without grasping its true sense. And he also raised an example here. Let me see. If you can skip this, we can move to next page. The binoms in early Chinese, we have different types, various types. For example, we have alliterative binoms and rhyming binoms, and alliterative and rhyming binoms, or neither alliterative nor rhyming binoms, and reduplicative. For example, alliterative binoms, like the term 伶俐 in modern Chinese, still in use in modern Chinese. This is a very old term, which means smart and sharp. It's still commonly used now, but it was it's a typical alliterative because it has the two characters share the same initials, but different variegated in finals and medials. Another term is 倜傥, which means untrammeled and dapper. They also have share the same initials. For example, they all start with a T. And rhyming binoms such as Tsung-I, which means vast and indistinct, and 混沌, which means nebulous and chaotic. They also have the same finals. They're all ending with on, like 苍茫. And 混沌ending with 混沌. As we even find some alliterative and rhyming binomes. For example, 辗转. They have the same initials and same endings, same ending vowel categories. And but the medial is different. For example, 辗转, 转 with addition of u medial. So it makes the pronunciation different. And some of them are neither alliterative nor rhyming. For example, 铿锵. In many cases, these are the onomatopoeias. And 葡萄 is an imported term. It's probably imported from the west of China, in the Near East, probably. And in other type is what we call the reduplicative, like yu, which means lastingly, and tt, conspicuously. These are the reduplicative of one word. Since a binome usually, the meaning of semantic meaning of a binome usually represented by its pronunciation. So in many cases, the binomes can be, the words can be replaced by other words. The writing form are changing. For example, in the Book of Songs, the very old anthology of Chinese poetry, we have a poem called 禁语. In that poem, we use this 执竹, 搔首执竹, which means I scratch my head, pacing up and down. 执竹 means like a hesitation, like reading around. So this 执竹 can be replaced by in other script form, for example, 执竹 in the Book of Change, and even can be replaced by 踌躇, which has a very similar, very close sound relation, but not exactly the same. But still, the meaning is carried by the pronunciation 踌躇. And 执竹 here in the Grand Script record, oldest Chinese history book. People usually think that binome is very old. We even discover some of the use of a binome in oracle bone inscriptions. For example, this one. This is the example. This one is in the shape of 蜘蛛. This is probably is the origin of this term 蜘蛛. And in some cases, we found out the binome can be separately used. In principle, binome is cannot two components of the binome cannot be decomposed, but in some cases it can be separated. For example, 伶俐, in modern Chinese we also say 伶牙俐齿, which means eloquent. 伶牙俐齿 is actually a very a special use of 伶俐. They try to form another idiom based on the 伶俐, the character 伶俐 and 牙齿 pair with synonyms to form an idiom. In other cases, for example, in the Book of Songs, there are some very special use of binomes. For example, in the one poem called 西柚长处, we see the term 婀娜. 婀娜 is a term also still in use in nowadays. For example, we usually use this term to describe a dancer or the branch of the wood of the tree in the wind. The gracefulness. And in the poem 西有长处, in English translation, let me read it. In the lowlands is a gold peach, very delicate are its boughs. So, 婀娜 means delicate, but in some other poem, for example, in another poem called 挪, this term is separated and two words are placed in different places. For example, 阿谀挪谀致我陶骨. So, oh fine, oh lovely, we set about tambourines and drums. Or even we can separate in different lines this venom. For example, 其上有阿，其也有挪. The mulberry on the lowland are how graceful, its leaves how tender. You can see that the two components of the venom was placed in different endings of two lines. So this is very rarely seen, but still we can find it in some cases. And in another poem, 奇遇 of the Book of Songs, we can see that one part of this venom, the one component of this venom, was reduplicated, like we call it compose another term, So that means in some writing tests and in some versified process, venom can be freely used, in a very different ways. Many other examples, because of limited time, I'm not going to read all of them. Let me skip. For example, very ancient documents which can be dated to the 4th century or 5th century BC, 老子. Excavated version of 老子, in 郭店 version of 老子, we can see that 犹豫, which means hesitant, the term 犹豫, which is very common in use in modern Chinese. And 犹豫 was separated, the two characters was separated. And also even in reverse order, like 豫兮如东涉川, 犹兮其若未四邻. So which means tentative, as though crossing a stream in winter, hesitant, as though in fierce surrounding neighbors. I used I borrowed Professor Scott Cook's translation here. And some other terms like 明末, you can even use it as 明明默默, or even simply use 明明 or 默默. All these are descended or originated from the original term 明末, but it has different form, can be transformed into other forms. Another case is like 恍惚. 恍惚 in 老子this is also very common modern terms of to describe nebulous and fathomless. But in 老子, it's used in a reverse order. It's called 忽恍 here. So this sentence means the form of formless and the image of a non-entity. This is called the amorphous. And sometimes in other chapter of 老子, it's used as a 为恍为惚 or 恍兮惚兮. This is a 3rd century commentator of 老子, and he even used 恍惚 as a 忽忽恍恍. They all mean the same, which represents the nebulous and the blurred. Now let's come to a term what we are very familiar with. It's called Xiaoyao. Xiaoyao is one of the key concepts or very important concepts in Taoism, in Taoist theories. Xiaoyao, especially in Zhuangzi. Zhuangzi, the opening chapter of Zhuangzi is Xiaoyao You. So basically, Xiaoyao means carefree. But traditional commentators, usually they do not understand that this is a binom. So usually understand when they denote this word, usually treat the two characters differently and use try to interpret the sentence, the word. For example, this is a 4th century commentator, Gu Tongbo. He understands xiao as xiao means eliminate, yao means far away. So that is to eliminate all the burdens caused by human actions and observe from afar the reason behind the nature's own action. Wandering in this fashion is thus known as xiaoyao. Evidently, he treated xiao and yao as two different words with individual connotations, which is a misunderstanding of the term because it's he didn't know that this is a binom. Other commentators are similar. I'm not going to read all of them because too many. Sorry. Okay. So Xiaoyao basically, in Zhuangzi's idea, let me read one sentence of Zhuangzi's description of Xiaoyao. Far away they are, roaming beyond the dust and the dirt of the mundane world, carefree in the karma of non-action. So Xiaoyao basically in Zhuangzi's concept, it means carefree. And he mentioned Xiaoyao, used Xiaoyao many times in the Zhuangzi, in the whole book of Zhuangzi. So here is another case that Shun, the very ancient emperor, Shun wished to abdicate the rulership. Sorry. Shun wished to abdicate the rulership of all under heaven in favor of a good role. And the good role said, I stand in the middle of universal space and time. And then he mentioned that when the sun comes up, I work. When the sun sets, I cease. I roam through heaven and earth and satisfy myself with the source in my mind. Why would I want to take on the rulership of all under heaven? So basically, Xiaoyao here means like roam through heaven and earth and satisfy myself. There are some other passages. Basically, it means carefree or taking non-action. Zhuangzi's concept of Xiaoyao is, of course, derived from Laozi, from legendary who was like a 4th century or 5th century philosopher who is contemporaries with Confucius, one generation older probably. And Laozi mentioned that he lets the myriad creatures rise up but does not instigate them. He acts but does not presume. So this is 生而不有，为而不恃. He mentioned this a few times. This is what Zhuangzi's idea comes from. Basically, the concept of Xiaoyao in Zhuangzi, we can see that sometimes it's a political ideal and sometimes it's a philosophy of life. Basically, it means pursuing self-liberation and taking non-action as nature does. So it's along the same line of thought as Lao Tzu. But where this concept come from? We know that in from 7th to 5th century in ancient China, we have experienced a span of time that many philosophical conversations and philosophers occurred during that span of time, and basically many very important philosophical or moral concepts were generated because of they actually basically they are from a concrete concept, concrete description themes. And Xiaoyao is also the same case. For example, if we trace it back before Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi's time, we have some other texts like Shi Jing, Book of Songs, and the use of Xiaoyao is generally it means that like move at ease and course at will. Xiaoyao means roaming here in this poem. And another poem also, it means centering, free and self-satisfied, Xiaoyao means. Okay, they'll say. So the usage of Xiaoyao changed over time, and this change is particularly evident in the Book of Songs, in the Shi Jing. During spring and autumn period of the Eastern Zhou, before the time of Zhuangzi, both the man and the book, the term Xiaoyao only carried basic meaning of like lingering around, roaming freely and leisurely, and traveling around at one's pleasure. When we study the poems dated back to the reign of King Xuan of the Western Zhou, which is like 9th century BC, late 9th century BC and early 8th century BC, or earlier times, we found that while the word Xiaoyao does not appear in these texts, there are terms and phrases with similar sound and meanings. There's one term, Xiaoyao. There's a poem titled Changwu, which can be dated back to the King Xuan, the reign of King Xuan, can be dated back to the late 9th century and early 8th century BC. The poem, one paragraph of the poem reads, "Full of grandeur and strength, the Son of Heaven looked majestic, together with his grand guardian called Arms. Leisurely and calmly the king advanced." So this is basically the last line of the poem, "Fei Shao Fei You." And we see how to read, how to understand this line. Traditional commentators and modern commentators, modern like students and of the Book of Songs have provided various meanings, various interpretations of this line. But this actually, fei here, the character fei here is a particle. It's a conjunction like particle, but it doesn't carry any meaning. And shao and yu is actually one term. This is very common in use in Book of Songs, in the poetry, in the poems of a Book of Songs. For example, like 原始原谋，约止约时。So 匪少匪游 actually is a binome and used with a particle, added particle 匪. So actually it's Xiaoyao. So grammatical particles were added to construct a 4-character or tetrasyllabic line to compose a poetic line. So the words in between the particles should be read as one semantic unit. For example, 匪少匪游 should be treated as 少游. 原始原谋 should be read as 始谋. 约止约时 should be read as 止时. Another term we see in another poem of a book of songs, 腰勺. 腰勺 is also 少游. Actually, it's but 少游 in reverse order. And similarly, we found also other terms like 绰约. 绰约 is indeed a reverse of 腰勺. So from all these tests, we can see that from Xiaoyao, we found 少游, and from 少游, we found 匪少匪游. And also we found 腰勺. They are all sound correlated. So they're descending from one binome of Old Chinese. In Han Dynasty, that's 2nd century BC, we also have some other term like 腰勺, but in different writing forms. Similarly, we also, from this word family, from this binome family, we also found other binomes, for example, 超摇, 招摇. 超摇 in the Rhapsody, 楚 lyrics of Chu, and 招摇 in the Guan Scribes record, and 骄傲 from other poems. So this table, I'm going to show you that the sound relations between these words. For example, here I put Wang Li, Li Fanggui, and William Baxter's and Zheng Zhang Shangfang's reconstruction of these words of Old Chinese. You can see what in common is they all think that these words falls in the same vowel categories, ending with ao, 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 ao. The yu is a neighboring category, a vowel category of ao. Another term we found in Book of Songs is 虚谐.
Can I just briefly interrupt you here? Sorry. If you
Yes.
could try to come to the conclusion in 5 minutes from now, just so that we also have a little bit of time for discussion at the end, that would be great.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. 虚谐 is another term that we found belong to the same category of Xiaoyao family, word family. These are the reconstructed Old Chinese rhyme groups of 虚谐, Shu, Yi. We found this binome in other like inscription tests as well. For example, 书仪 is a term we found in bronze inscriptions. This is the bronze Wang Sun Gao handbells. We also found the same binome. These are the binomes that we found from bronze inscriptions. And also, we found this binome in the manuscript writings as well. Now, let me come to the concluding part of this paper. So binomes consist of two relevant morphemic units, and in most cases, they cannot be decomposed in meaning and pronunciation. Well, this is undoubtedly true in general sense. There are tests found among the received classics or inscribed or excavated documents, especially in rhyme tests, which exhibit particular behavior of binomes that do not necessarily follow the principle of non-separation. Here, I have shown a few cases of the decomposition of binomes in the versified and the rhymed literature, be it transmitted classics or excavated manuscripts. This phenomenon has misled students of early Chinese studies, both traditional and modern, both Chinese and non-Chinese, in their reception and interpretation of these tests. So if we, in light of a separate use of binome in some rhyming tests, in some versified tests, we can see that we can probably reinterpret some classical passages and also provide a new understanding of, which is a correct understanding of the ancient texts. Okay, thank you very much.